Hi, I'm Irfran. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Irfran.
Um, yeah, it's actually really hard for me to share, and this is the first time I'm standing up and sharing, so that's going to be interesting. I want to start by reading from this is the beginning of This Is a Solution. It's one of my favorite parts. We of Alcoholics Anonymous know thousands of men and women who were once just as hopeless as Bill. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved the drink problem. We are average Americans. All sections of this country and many of its occupations are represented, as well as many political, economic, social, and religious backgrounds. We are people who normally would not mix, but there exists among us a fellowship, a friendliness, and an understanding which is indescribably wonderful. We are like passengers of a great liner the moment after rescue from shipwreck, when camaraderie, joyousness, and democracy pervade the vessel from steerage to captain's table. Unlike the feelings of the ship's passengers, however, our joy in escape from disaster does not subside as we go our individual ways. The feelings of having shared in a common peril is one element in the powerful cement which binds us, but that in itself would never have held us together as we are now joined. The tremendous fact for every one of us is that we have discovered a common solution. Um, so I want to talk about, I guess, my qualifications, as I've heard other people do. Um, Forgot. I have a sponsor. I'm slowly working the steps. I have a few home groups, some service positions, and about 10 months sober now. Um, and I think most importantly, I don't have the most exciting drunk log, but I do have that obsession, and I have the desire to stop drinking. So I feel like that kind of definitely makes me feel comfortable coming to these rooms. Um, I don't see a lot of people that look like me in these rooms, but that doesn't mean I don't feel welcome. And for whatever reason, a lot of people, maybe from my culture, have stigmatized a lot of things and don't seek the help they need. But I'm here, and I hope my being here helps other people show up and realize it doesn't really matter how someone looks or is. Kind of about the past. Grew up in Chicago. Um, had a very loving family. We were moderate religious. My family is of Muslim background, so alcoholism wasn't a thing. Alcohol wasn't a thing. It wasn't around, or at least I didn't know about it. Um, and yeah, it was. They were very loving, but also very protective. Um, I don't ever remember not having my parents in the house. We were never home alone. We were never unsupervised, basically. And the first time I was unsupervised overnight, I was 18 and decided to go to a party. So um, I knew I needed to rebel in some way. And alcohol was an easy way to rebel at that age. So I remember going to that party and immediately having shots because that was the first thing I did when I went in, and it was bottled up for years. And it helped. It was a solution for a while. I had a lot of mental illness issues as a child. I had obsessive compulsive disorder, as well as kind of struggling with sexuality and other identity issues, and that helped. Alcohol made it easier to be around people, easier to deal with myself. Well, more than anything, it just masked everything. But for a while, it was a solution. Um, and eventually, I moved to Seattle. Well, in between that, I went to college and almost flunked out because I drank a lot and I didn't really care. Um, and eventually, I moved to Seattle and became a daily drinker. Actually, drank heavily at the beginning, went out a lot, and somehow started to moderate my drinking around other people. But of course, when I went home, I would drink. Um, and by the time by the time COVID hit, it was pretty. That became pretty rough. I was already a daily drinker, but that just made me drink during the morning, evening, and I was never not drunk. Um, so it's a good thing I had a therapist and had been working with her for several years, and brought up the idea that I don't like that I can't go a day without drinking. So that just built up over time. I wasn't ready to get help then. And when I was, I went to treatment. I was lucky enough to go to treatment and came back and was sober for about 5 months without a program. So that was rough. And of course, I got a dog in early sobriety, and she had a lot of issues. Um, and I had to give her up. So a week later, I started drinking again. That was pretty rough because I didn't have a program. I didn't have a way of dealing with stressful situations. I was still drunk in a way. Um, and then I went back out for a year and then detox, inpatient, outpatient. Um, but by March of last year, I realized the more I relapse, the worse it gets. Um, the progressive nature just like made itself evident each time I got sober, the harder it was when I relapsed to get sober again. And I just felt more and more emotional pain until one night, I don't remember if I was drunk or not. I probably was, but I wanted to kill myself. And it was almost at that point. Um, then I knew I needed to really figure things out a bit more. And I had been going to meetings occasionally for my outpatient program, but this was the first time I actually, this was in March of 2024. I decided somehow I wanted a sponsor, and I went up to the sponsorship coordinator and they set me up the sponsor. And I've been working with him ever since. And it's been hard, but good. Um, it's been hard, but good. And I think some of the things I'm realizing now, um, hold on, thinking, I'm able to deal with my isolation better, because for isolation for me became insanity, and I need to go to meetings to keep sane. I go to 1 to 2 meetings a day and have been since March, um, and that's what keeps me sane. I may not share much. I may not talk to people. I may just go in and out, but I know I need a meeting. Um, and I need to work the steps. I'm slow. I'm a perfectionist and a procrastinator. Um, but I think one of the biggest spiritual experiences I've seen, and I haven't had white light moments, but is that I can stick to a program. Is that because if in the past, if something didn't work right away, I just stopped. And luckily, I'm seeing things somehow work, and that keeps me trying. Um, and I'm okay with not being perfect about it. I'm okay with being slow about it. It doesn't have to. I mean, most things are more now, like this disease tells me. But for this, maybe that's uh, maybe that's just procrastinating, which it is. But I'm okay with it, not more, and not necessarily now at this point. Yeah. Um, but what I liked about this reading is that these are people that I mean, I may, there are people in rooms I go to that I may or may not ever have met outside that, alcohol is just kind of like the great leveler. Like it brings all of us down a few notches into our knees. And even if I may not look like you, have the economic status as you, or I may not, whatever, um, I might like McDonald's and you might like Burger King. I don't know. Or Diet Coke and Pepsi. But, and my story may not be my drug log may not be as interesting or maybe more interesting, but really, I think we all get each other. It's a way that like I won't be able to explain to my parents why I drink or why I used to drink or why I want to drink, but they don't need to understand either. It's I come here for people that understand. Um, and let's see if there's something to talk about. And yeah, um, really also just kind of like helps level set my ego. That if I like, I may go to rooms and roll my eyes at some people's shares, but because they say the same thing over and over again, but that helps. Um, or in a business meeting, which probably challenges everyone's patience, but just being there and sitting there, like, helps my ego, helps me not think about myself, helps me not isolate, and yeah, it's been helping a lot. So I'm really looking forward to a year and a couple of months, and I'm not sure I have much else. Thank you for letting me do a service here.